First of all, nice to meet you.
You know, you have a guitar pick taped to your thumb.
Yeah, well, it's not exactly taped, but it's what I call my pick lip. So
what the hell is that?
Like you can take any pick that you use and make it a thumb pick, basically.
So when you go to finger
pick, it's right there on your thumb.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so whoever invented this thinks they're going to make $1 million in this crazy little invention. Right?
I hope so, since I patented it.
You did?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, you're going to be a mogul.
Oh, well, thank you.
Don't forget about us little people. There it is. I'll come knocking on this door and it's a state in Malibu and says, George, who? Send him away.
Yeah.
I just cup it like that, you know, between my fingers.
That's
when
cool.
I go from string to pick, but
yeah,
it's less expensive that way.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know, you don't. If you're ever caught without one of these, then you're not in trouble. So
you know, a lot of us, you know, players have been around a while. I think have sort of evolved into not using a pick so much.
Right.
You know, a la Jeff Beck and Richie Kotzen and those kind of guys.
Yep.
So you've got that device, which is pretty awesome.
And this totally came out of a different place than that. I mean, I went to college for classical guitar, but really this was more born out of doing the two-handed tapping stuff, and you know, so
having to free up your
yeah, so I could you know, that kind of stuff, you know.
And it would be too difficult for you to switch between cupping the pick between your fingers.
Right, right. And
to do that.
there's too much a gap there. So it's just one of those things where I need it when I need it, but I can't use any of the other fingers to really make it happen.
You expect me to play after that?
And
Holy
then,
shit!
And then you know, for the finger picking stuff.
Oh yeah, nice.
Awesome, man.
Well, I just thrown something in there, you know. You're doing all the hard work.
That was awesome, though. Killer. You know, one thing I definitely noticed is how much you're using the clutching of the pick and your individual fingers to get a lot of your tones. And you'd mentioned the influence like Jeff Beck. And so where do you get a lot of your influence from for that?
All my playing influence comes from just osmosis. You know, I listened to people when I was a kid. I mean, just playing along with Hendrix records and Johnny Winter and Beck and, you know, everybody from that era, and just kind of playing along, pretending I was in the band and not knowing technically how they did anything, but just trying to emulate it.
Right.
Probably not the right way. And
right.
That's basically it in a nutshell. I'm not a theory guy. I don't know scales and modes and, you know, different techniques and things like that. I'm more just kind of off the cuff.
Right, right. But how cool is that? Because you mentioned the term emulate, but really emulation kind of in a way creates innovation because you're trying to find the way that it suits your ear, but maybe you go about it in a different process and ultimately come up with something that's new. Yeah. So I think that's awesome.
The best example for me of that, the most simplest example, is like when I was young, I couldn't really do. It was hard for me to bend strings and create, you know, the vibrato effect that I was hearing Hendrix do. Maybe he was using a bar, I don't know. But to get this kind of wild vibrato, I would sit, you know, I had a very kind of, you know, not a very developed vibrato, so I would vibrato horizontally.
I remember that, yeah.
So I just throw some heat on it, you know, and over the years I've learned to how much of that I want to do. You know, I'll throw that in once in a while, but it's unconscious, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
But it gives me another little tool in my tool belt, you know,
exactly,
to throw out there.
And I remember seeing you do that, and just I'd never. It just I'm always you hear how my pitch drifts a little bit. Yours is always dead on.
You know what's weird about it when you do it a lot, you create a lot of heat.
Right.
And
I could
you
see
can
that.
burn your finger doing that.
Right.
And I'm not kidding. And people, you know, there's the whole thing with the guitar player that's shredding
Setting
and
it
just
on fire.
fingers light on fire. I mean, it'll actually get to that point where it's painful. You know?
Right.
It's
Wow.
kind of weird. But yeah, I just vacillate between, you know. A lot of just whatever that is, pedal tone kind of stuff. And then I'll just switch, and then I'll just grab my pick and I'll just, you know.
Nice.
So just, I unconsciously just switch back and forth, and I don't have a problem with that, but I don't do the multi-finger tapping thing. I just
Right,
do a
right.
single finger or a tap with a pick.
That's cool. Yeah.
You know, I'm sure all of us, you, yourself, me, everybody, guitar players, we just always fall back to the same thing.
Right.
You know, ended up doing the same thing we always do, and it's really hard to get out of that box once you've kind of got that in your bones, you know.
Right. But I also think that you tend to gravitate towards the type of player that you are. Your personality almost kind of dictates the player that you are.
And you will
as much
change
as
over
influence.
time.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I mean, we see that with Jeff Beck. I mean, how beautifully he has evolved, and one of the few legacy guys that has.
Right.
You know, we don't know where Hendrix would have went, you know, had he been around, but, you know, and not to denigrate anybody, but I'm saying it's just a natural tendency as you get older, especially if you're very successful and rich, to kind of rest on your laurels.
Yeah, yeah.
But Beck didn't. I mean, he stayed, he changed, and at first I was very kind of, I didn't want to see him change. I wanted him to be Beck-Ola in truth, you know, for the rest of his life. I wanted Zeppelin to be the first two records for the rest of their lives, you know. But I had to grow and evolve and learn how to appreciate where they were going. And I think it's wonderful when fans allow us to change too, because I noticed that, and I'm sure you get this with your bands and your music, is that the fans are so conservative. They don't want to see you change, you know?
Right, yeah.
So we're human beings and artistic human beings, and we need to evolve.
Right.
Most of us do. I mean, AC/DC is happy with doing the same thing they always do. We like that, and that's
Right.
good. But some of us aren't built that way, you know?
Right, and it's one of those things where, yeah, people want to hear. It's like they want there to be a new classic, but how can that ever be, you know?
Well, you got Van Halen. Van Halen is Van Halen. AC/DC is AC/DC. Iron Maiden is Iron Maiden. But then there's people that are built differently that do evolve in beautiful ways like Beck.
Right.
It's not like we want to be Garth Brooks and turn into from a country star to a pop star overnight.
Right.
Just because we're trying to do a career kind of move.
Yeah.
It's just a slow, natural evolution. And people kind of have, you know, I hear this all the time. Why can't you be the guy you were in the 80s? I'm going, because every molecule in my body has changed like 10 times
You've
since
had
the last
many
30
influences
years.
since then, and
Life changes
Yeah.
and things like that.
And to me, that's the thing, you know, if you picture it the way, you know, oh, you're going in the studio and you're thinking, well, you know, I want to release something that was a lot like, you know, back in the 80s, early 90s or whatever. But the thing is I don't think the audience realizes that they've changed as well. So they accept those songs that came out then and they hold them so close. But even if you came out with a song that was, you know, better, 10 times better, they would be like, oh.
It's not the same.
Yeah.
Because see, music doesn't work like that. It isn't just the song. It's what's happening in the world at that time, in those people's lives at that time, the zeitgeist, the culture, everything that's occurring right then at that space and that time. And that music marks that time and that personal history for these people.
Right.
They were getting married, or they were having babies, or they were partying, or whatever it is, you know. And then this was happening around in the larger world. Well, we don't live in that world anymore. We're not those same people anymore. So even if I wrote the perfect Dokken song that would have been the biggest hit, you know, in 1987, it wouldn't be relevant to anything nowadays.
Right.
And plus, I couldn't write it because
you have been influenced by the world as well.
I've had people, you know, approach me and want to do that, and they said, "Well, we need you to write a Dokken song." I go, well, I couldn't do it. I can do anything but that. If you put a gun to my head, I couldn't do it. I don't know where that came from. You know?
Right.
You know, so that's the beautiful thing about music is you just cannot nail it down. It's so kind of evolving and it's so mysterious.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't, it wouldn't be the beautiful thing that it is, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, we can't define it. That's what I love about it.
Right. But still, one of my all-time favorite tones is your first Lynch mob. I mean, that tone was insane.
Fundamentally, I couldn't imagine how it could even compete with what's happening in a two band.
Like a G minor. And I'm just moving down through the intervals.